Jake Martinez stared at the alien ship through the observation window and felt his heart race. The vessel looked nothing like the metal ships humans built. It moved like a living thing made of coral and light. Blue and green colors flowed across. Its surface like water. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful and strange at the same time. Captain Lisa Thompson stood beside him watching the same view. She had gray hair and tired eyes that had seen many battles. This was different, though. This was not war. This was the first time humans would meet the Velthari Empire face to face. The aliens had been watching humans for many years, but never spoke to them until now. Jake was 28 years old and the youngest person on the USS Meridian. He had studied alien languages for 4 years at the academy. The Velthari language was the hardest thing he ever tried to learn. It had sounds that human throats could barely make. The words changed meaning based on tone and pitch. Jake practiced every day, but still made mistakes. Dr. Alex Rivera walked up to them carrying a thick data pad. He was the ship's expert on alien biology and culture. His job was to help humans understand how to act around the Velthari without causing problems. Alex had brown skin and kind eyes behind thick glasses. He always looked worried about something. "The princess will arrive in 1 hour," Alex said to Captain Thompson. "Her ship is sending landing signals now. Jake, are you ready with the translation system?" Jake nodded, but his hands shook a little. He had been working on the translation matrix for weeks. It was a computer system that helped convert human speech into Velthari sounds, and the other way around. The system was not perfect. Sometimes it made mistakes that could be embarrassing or even dangerous. Commander Ryan Blake joined their group. He was a big man with short black hair and serious eyes. His job was to protect the ship and crew from any threats. Ryan did not trust the aliens. He thought the meeting could be a trap. His hand always stayed near his weapon when he talked about the Velthari. "I don't like this," Ryan said quietly. "We know almost nothing about their real intentions. What if they are studying her weaknesses?" Captain Thompson gave him a sharp look. "Our orders are clear, Commander. This is a diplomatic mission. We make contact and try to build peaceful relations. That's what Earth Command wants." The ship's communication system made a soft sound. A woman's voice spoke from the speakers. "Captain Thompson to the main conference room. The Velthari delegation is requesting permission to board." Jake felt his stomach flip. This was really happening. He grabbed his translation equipment and followed the others toward the conference room. The hallways of the USS Meridian were painted white and gray. Everything looked clean and military. Jake wondered what the inside of the alien ship looked like. The conference room had a large round table in the center. Earth Command had sent special chairs that could adjust for different body types. No one knew exactly what the Velthari looked like in person. The video messages they sent showed tall figures that seemed to glow with their own light. Captain Thompson sat at the head of the table. Dr. Rivera sat to her right with his notes and instruments. Commander Blake positioned himself near the door where he could watch everything. Jake sat across from the captain with his translation matrix in front of him. The machine looked like a flat metal box with lights and speakers. The main door opened with a soft hiss. 3 figures walked into the room, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. The Velthari were even more amazing in person than in the video. Messages. They were tall like humans, but their skin looked like living crystal. Light seemed to move under the surface in patterns of blue and silver. The one in front had to be Princess Zaira Hai. She wore clothes that looked like they were woven from starlight. Her face was similar to a human woman, but more angular and sharp. Her eyes were large and completely blue with no white parts. When she looked at Jake, he felt like she could see right through him. Behind her walked an older, Velthari, with darker crystal skin and gold markings on his face. This had to be High Counselor Thexmore. His eyes were cold, and he studied everything in the room like he was looking for weapons or tricks. The third alien was younger, and stayed in the background. Jake guessed this one was some kind of guard or assistant. Princess Zarahai stepped forward and spoke in her musical language. Jake quickly activated the translation matrix. The machine hummed for a second, then converted her words into English. Greetings to the representatives of Earth. I am Princess Zarahai of the Velthari Empire. We come in peace to begin understanding between our peoples. Captain Thompson stood and spoke slowly, so the translation matrix could process her words. Welcome aboard the USS Meridian, Your Highness. I am Captain Lisa Thompson. We are honored by your presence and hope this meeting begins a long friendship between humans and Velthari. The translation matrix converted the captain's words into Velthari sounds. The princess listened carefully, then nodded. She looked directly at Jake and said something else. The machine translated her words as, "You are the one who speaks our language?" Jake felt his face get hot. He stood up and tried to speak in Velthari without using the machine. His pronunciation was terrible, but he managed to say, "Yes, Your Highness. I am Jake Martinez. I study your beautiful language." The princess made a sound that might have been laughter. The patterns of light under her skin moved faster. High Counselor. Thexmore frowned and said something sharp to her in their language. Jake's translation matrix picked up words that meant improper and unnecessary contact. Princess Zarahai ignored her advisor and spoke to Jake again. This time she used simple words that he could understand without the machine. Your accent is amusing, but your effort is appreciated, Jake Martinez. The way she said his name made it sound like music. Jake felt something strange happen in his chest. He had studied many alien species, but none of them had ever made him feel this way. The princess was not just beautiful in an alien way. She seemed smart and kind. When she looked at him, Jake felt like the most important person in the room. Doctor Rivera cleared his throat and started talking about the planned cultural exchange program. The princess listened politely, but Jake noticed that she kept glancing at him while the doctor spoke. Every time their eyes met, the light patterns under her skin seemed to pulse brighter. Commander Blake watched everything with suspicious eyes. He did not like how interested the princess seemed in Jake. Ryan had read reports about alien species that used attraction and charm as weapons. He wondered if the Velthari were trying to manipulate their youngest crew member. The meeting continued. For 2 hours, they discussed basic trade agreements and scientific cooperation. The princess asked many questions about human culture and history. She seemed especially interested in human art and music. Jake found himself answering more of her questions than the senior officers. When the meeting ended, Princess Zarahai stood and spoke formally to Captain Thompson. This has been a productive beginning. We propose to continue these discussions over the next several days. Perhaps we could arrange for more detailed cultural exchanges. As the Velthari delegation prepared to leave, the princess walked over to Jake. She spoke quietly in her own language. Jake understood most of what she said. I look forward to learning more about humans, Jake Martinez, especially about their capacity for friendship. Jake watched her leave and felt like something important had just begun. He did not know that Princess Zarahai was thinking the same thing. For the first time in her life, she had met someone who looked at her like she was a person instead of just a royal title. The young human with the terrible accent and kind eyes had made her curious about things she had never considered before. Captain Thompson noticed Jake staring at the closed door. She wondered if their youngest officer was developing feelings. That could complicate the mission. The princess had certainly seemed interested in him. Lisa made a mental note to keep an eye on the situation. First contact missions were delicate enough, without adding romance to the mix. 3 weeks passed since the first meeting, and Jake found himself spending more time with Princess Zarahai than anyone expected. The cultural exchange sessions were supposed to be formal educational meetings. Instead, they had become something that felt more like friendship. The princess came to the USS Meridian every other day. She brought data files about Velthari art and music. Jake showed her human paintings on the computer screens and played recordings of Earth music. She listened to everything with deep attention. Her crystal skin would change colors when she heard something that moved her. Dr. Rivera watched these sessions with scientific interest. He took notes about how the princess reacted to different types of human culture. Alex had never seen an alien show such genuine curiosity about human emotions and creativity. Most species they met were only interested in human technology or military capabilities. Commander Blake was less pleased with how things were developing. He noticed that Jake and the princess often forgot that other people were in the room. They would lean close together over data pads and speak quietly in mixed languages. Ryan thought this was dangerous. He had read too many reports about first contact missions that went wrong because someone got emotionally involved. Captain Thompson tried to balance everyone's concerns. She could see that Jake and Princess Zarahai were building real trust between their species. At the same time, she worried about the political implications. If the Velthari government thought humans were trying to manipulate their princess, it could destroy any chance of peaceful relations. On a Tuesday morning, Jake was in the ship's observation deck preparing materials for the day's cultural session. The observation deck had large windows that showed the stars and the alien ship floating nearby. Jake liked this room because it was quiet and peaceful. Princess Zarahai arrived early. She wore different clothes than usual. Instead of the formal royal garments, she had on something that looked more comfortable and simple. The light patterns under her skin seemed softer too. "I wanted to speak with you alone today," she said in careful English. Her accent made the words sound musical. "There are things I cannot say when others are listening." Jake felt his heart speed up. He put down his datapad and gave her his full attention. "What kind of things?" The princess walked to the large window and looked out at the stars. "I have been studying your people for many years, Jake Martinez, not just recently. Long before these official meetings began." This surprised Jake. The Velthari had only contacted Earth 6 months ago. "How long have you been watching us?" "Since I was young," she said quietly. "My position gives me access to information that most Velthari do not have. I have watched your movies and read your books. I learned your languages in secret. My advisors do not know about this." Jake walked over to stand beside her at the window. "Why did you study us in secret? Is it forbidden?" Princess Zarahai made a sound that was like a sigh. "My people believe that emotions make species weak and primitive. We evolved beyond such things long ago, or so they teach us. Our marriages are arranged for genetic benefits. We choose careers based on logical analysis. We do not have concepts like love or passion or dreams." The way she said the word love made Jake's chest feel tight. "But you wanted to learn about these things anyway?" "I have always felt different from other Velthari," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I experience feelings that my people say are impossible. When I watch human art or listen to human music, something inside me responds. I feel things that have no names in my language." Jake stared at her profile as she gazed out at the stars. The light under her skin was pulsing in slow waves of blue and silver. He had learned enough about Velthari biology to know that these patterns showed emotional states. Right now she looked sad and lonely. "What kinds of feelings?" he asked gently. She turned to look at him directly. Her large blue eyes seemed to hold depths he could not measure. When I first saw you trying so hard to speak my language, even though you made mistakes, I felt something warm and bright inside my chest. When you defend my people's culture to your own crew members, that feeling gets stronger. When you look at me like I am just Zarahai instead of Princess Zarahai, I feel like I can be myself for the first time. Jake felt like the air had been knocked out of his lungs. He wanted to tell her that he understood exactly what she meant. Every time she smiled at his terrible pronunciation, every time she laughed at his jokes about human customs, every time she asked him questions about his own thoughts and dreams, he felt that same warm, bright feeling. But he was just a junior communications officer. She was royalty from an advanced alien empire. The gulf between them seemed impossible to cross. Your people would not approve of these feelings, he said carefully. High Counselor Vexmore already suspects that I am becoming too interested in human ways, she admitted. He reports everything to my father, the Emperor. If they knew how much I have studied your culture, or how much I enjoy our conversations, there would be serious consequences. Jake felt a cold fear settle in his stomach. What kind of consequences? I would be removed from the diplomatic mission. Someone else would take my place in these negotiations. I would probably be married off to a suitable Velthari noble to prevent further contamination by alien influences. The thought of never seeing her again hit Jake like a physical blow. Over the past 3 weeks, talking with Princess Zarahai had become the best part of his day. She was brilliant and curious and funny in ways that surprised him. She asked questions about human emotions that made him think about his own feelings more deeply. We should be more careful then, he said reluctantly. She nodded but looked disappointed. Yes, we should be. But I wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to understand that when I asked you about human customs of friendship and affection, I am not just gathering information for my government. I am trying to understand something about myself. They stood in silence for a few minutes, both looking out at the alien ship floating in the distance. Jake wondered what it would be like to visit her world. A giant cities made of living crystal and music that could paint colors in the air. Can I ask you something personal? Jake said finally. Yes. Do you ever feel trapped by being a princess? Do you ever wish you could just be a normal person who could make her own choices? Princess Zarahai's light patterns shifted to deeper blues and purples. Every day of my life, everything I do is planned by advisors or commanded by tradition. I have never been allowed to choose anything important for myself. Until now. What do you mean, until now? She looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. I chose to learn about humans. I chose to study your languages and your art. I chose to enjoy our conversations, even though it might be dangerous. For the first time, I am making decisions based on what I want, instead of what others expect. Jake felt that warm, bright feeling in his chest again. The way she looked at him made him think that maybe he was part of what she was choosing. The thought was terrifying and wonderful. At the same time, Dr. Rivera's voice came over the communication system. Jake, the morning cultural session is scheduled to begin in 10 minutes. Is everything ready? Jake reluctantly stepped away from the window. We should go. The others will be expecting us. Princess Zarahai nodded and moved toward the door. As she passed him, she paused and spoke quietly in her own language. Jake's understanding of Velthari had improved enough that he caught most of what she said. It translated roughly to, "Thank you for seeing me as myself." The rest of the day's session went normally on the surface. They discussed Velthari poetry and human literature. Princess Zarahai asked questions about human concepts of friendship and loyalty. Jake explained Earth customs around celebrating important events and showing appreciation for people you care about. But underneath the formal discussion, both of them were thinking about their private conversation. Jake noticed that the princess's light patterns stayed brighter throughout the meeting. When their hands accidentally touched while sharing a datapad, she did not pull away immediately. Commander Blake noticed these small interactions and felt his suspicions grow stronger. After the princess left that day, he approached Captain Thompson in her office. "I think we have a problem developing," Ryan said bluntly. "Martinez is getting emotionally involved with the alien princess. And from what I can observe, the feeling might be mutual." Captain Thompson leaned back in her chair and sighed. She had been expecting this conversation. "What do you recommend, Commander?" "Reassign Martinez to different duties. Keep him away from the cultural exchange sessions. We can't risk the mission because our communications officer falls in love with alien royalty." Lisa Thompson considered this option. Jake was doing excellent work with the translation systems, and the princess clearly trusted him. Removing him from the diplomatic process could damage the progress they had made. On the other hand, Ryan was right about the risks. "I'll talk to Martinez," she decided. "Make sure he understands the importance of maintaining professional boundaries. But I won't reassign him unless the situation gets worse." That evening, Jake sat in his quarters thinking about everything Princess Zerahai had told him. He understood now why she seemed so interested in human emotions and relationships. She was trying to figure out feelings that her own culture told her were impossible. He also understood that caring about her was dangerous for both of them. If her government thought humans were manipulating their princess through emotional attachment, it could mean war instead of peace. But when he closed his eyes, Jake could still see the way her light patterns had pulsed when she looked at him. He could still hear the music in her voice when she said his name. Whatever was happening between them felt too important to ignore, even if it was impossible. A giant city's made of living crystal and music that could paint colors in the air. "Can I ask you something personal?" Jake said finally. "Yes. Do you ever feel trapped by being a princess? Do you ever wish you could just be a normal person who could make her own choices?" Princess Zerahai's light patterns shifted to deeper blues and purples. "Every day of my life, everything I do is planned by advisors or commanded by tradition. I have never been allowed to choose anything important for myself. Until now." "What do you mean, until now?" She looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. "I chose to learn about humans. I chose to study your languages and your art. I chose to enjoy our conversations even though it might be dangerous. For the first time, I am making decisions based on what I want instead of what others expect." Jake felt that warm, bright feeling in his chest again. The way she looked at him made him think that maybe he was part of what she was choosing. The thought was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Dr. Rivera's voice came over the communication system. "Jake, the morning cultural session is scheduled to begin in 10 minutes. Is everything ready?" Jake reluctantly stepped away from the window. "We should go. The others will be expecting us." Princess Zerahai nodded and moved toward the door. As she passed him, she paused and spoke quietly in her own language. Jake's understanding of Velthari had improved enough that he caught most of what she said. It translated roughly to "thank you for seeing me as myself." The rest of the day's session went normally on the surface. They discussed Velthari poetry and human literature. Princess Zerahai asked questions about human concepts of friendship and loyalty. Jake explained Earth customs around celebrating important events and showing appreciation for people you care about. But underneath the formal discussion, both of them were thinking about their private conversation. Jake noticed that the princess's light patterns stayed brighter throughout the meeting. When their hands accidentally touched while sharing a datapad, she did not pull away immediately. Commander Blake noticed these small interactions and felt his suspicions grow stronger. After the princess left that day, he approached Captain Thompson in her office. "I think we have a problem developing," Ryan said bluntly. Martinez is getting emotionally involved with the alien princess. And from what I can observe, the feeling might be mutual. Captain Thompson leaned back in her chair and sighed. She had been expecting this conversation. What do you recommend, Commander? Reassign Martinez to different duties. Keep him away from the cultural exchange sessions. We can't risk the mission because our communications officer falls in love with alien royalty. Lisa Thompson considered this option. Jake was doing excellent work with the translation systems, and the princess clearly trusted him. Removing him from the diplomatic process could damage the progress they had made. On the other hand, Ryan was right about the risks. I'll talk to Martinez, she decided. Make sure he understands the importance of maintaining professional boundaries. But I won't reassign him unless the situation gets worse. That evening, Jake sat in his quarters, thinking about everything Princess Zerahai had told him. He understood now why she seemed so interested in human emotions and relationships. She was trying to figure out feelings that her own culture told her were impossible. He also understood that caring about her was dangerous for both of them. If her government thought humans were manipulating their princess through emotional attachment, it could mean war instead of peace. But when he closed his eyes, Jake could still see the way her light patterns had pulsed when she looked at him. He could still hear the music in her voice when she said his name. Whatever was happening between them felt too important to ignore, even if it was impossible. Princess Zarakai stood on the bridge of the great warship and watched the human space station grow larger on the screen. Her tall body was covered in dark green scales that looked like armor. Sharp claws came from her fingers, and her yellow eyes could see in the dark. She was the best warrior of the Vextari Empire and had never lost a fight. Today would be no different, Doc. The space station called Kepler Station had been fighting her people for 6 months. This was far too long for such weak creatures. Humans were small and soft with no natural weapons. They had no scales to protect them and no claws to fight with. Most species in the galaxy fell to the Vextari in days or weeks. These humans were being stubborn. Zara single quotes. Kai touched the sword at her side. It was made from the strongest metal in the Empire, and it cut down 1,000 enemies. Her father, the Emperor, had given it to her when she won her first battle at age 15. That was 10 years ago, and she had not stopped winning since then. The humans would learn today why the galaxy feared the Vextari. Her second-in-command walked up to her. His name was Krell, and he had served her family for many years. His scales were darker than hers and covered in scars from many battles. He bowed his head as he spoke to her. Princess, the final attack is ready. Our ships have the station surrounded. Their shields are almost broken, and their weapons are running out of power. We can finish this in 1 hour. Zarakai nodded, but did not take her eyes off the screen. Something about this fight felt different. The humans should have given up weeks ago when they ran out of food. They should have surrendered when their main weapon systems failed. But they kept fighting even when they had no chance to win. Tell me about their leader again, Krell. His name is Captain Jake Morrison. He is a Marine, which means he is a soldier. The humans seem to follow him, even though he has no special rank among them. Our spies say he refuses to leave the station, even though he could escape in a small ship. Why would he stay to die? Krell made a sound that was like laughing. The humans are strange princes. They fight for things that make no sense. Jake Morrison stays because other humans are still on the station. He says he will not leave them behind. Zarakai found this hard to understand. In Vextari culture, the strong survived and the weak died. A good leader would save himself and find new followers later. Why would someone choose to die with weaklings who could not help themselves? How many humans are left on the station? About 3,000, Princess. Most are not soldiers. They are doctors and engineers and families with children. They have no weapons and cannot fight. Then why do they not surrender to save their lives? The humans say they will not become slaves. They would rather die as free people than live. Under our rule, this made even less sense to Zarakai. Life was better than death, even if that life was hard. The Vextari had ruled many worlds, and their slaves lived decent lives as long as they obeyed. These humans were choosing to die for an idea that could not help them. She walked away from Krell and stood alone at the front of the bridge. Through the thick glass, she could see the space station spinning slowly in the darkness. It was damaged, and parts of it were dark where the power had failed. But light still showed in many windows, and she knew humans were still alive inside. Her soldiers were the best in the galaxy. They had trained since childhood to fight and kill. Their weapons could cut through the strongest armor, and their ships could destroy planets. The humans had fought them for 6 months with broken equipment and empty stomachs. How was this possible? Zarakai pressed a button on her chair and spoke to all the ships in her fleet. Her voice was strong and clear, like the roar of a great beast. Warriors of the Empire, today we finish what we started. These humans have fought well, but their time is over. I will lead the final attack myself. Follow me, and we will take this station before the sun sets on their homeworld. Thousands of Vextari warriors heard her words and roared their approval. They respected strength, and their princess had never shown them anything else. They would follow her into any battle, can trust her to lead them to victory. But as Zarakai put on her battle armor, she felt something she had never felt before. It was not fear, because she did not know what fear was. It was more like curiosity mixed with something else she could not name. These humans were about to teach her something new, and she did not know if she was ready to learn it. The attack began with a storm of weapons fire that lit up space like a festival of lights. Vextari ships moved in perfect formation, while their guns tore holes in the station's hull. Explosions bloomed like flowers and pieces of metal flew in all directions. Zarakai led her personal guard through a hole they had blasted in the station side. The humans had built walls and barriers in the hallways, but these could not stop Vextari claws and strength. Her soldiers cut through the defenses like they were made of paper. The fighting was fierce, but short. Most humans could not match Vextari speed and power. But as they moved deeper into the station, Zarakai noticed something strange. The humans kept fighting even when they were hurt. They helped each other instead of running away. They shared their weapons with anyone who could use them. She came to a door marked with symbols that meant medical area. Behind this door would be the wounded and sick humans who could not fight. It should be easy to capture them and end this battle. But as the door opened, she saw something that would change her life forever. A human man stood in the doorway with a weapon in his hands. He was not very tall, and his skin was pale like he had not seen sunlight in many days. His uniform was torn and dirty, and she could see blood on his arms. This had to be the Captain Jake Morrison that Krell had told her about. What shocked Zarakai was not that he stood there with a weapon. It was the way he stood. He was not trying to attack her or run away. He was protecting the people behind him, even though he knew he could not win. His eyes met hers, and she saw no fear in them. Only determination to do what he thought was right. For the first time in her life, Princess Zarakai hesitated before striking down an enemy.